Hello and welcome back to And That's a Fact, the show where we take our humble opinions and turn them into definitive, objective fact. I'm Neil Adamson.
And I'm Rick Papandrea.
And today we are doing our second video, moving on to two different brackets in the round two to move on into the Sweet 16. And our first bracket that we are going to discuss in this video is going to be the contemporary bracket, also known, as we talked about last time, as
the Disney Renaissance. This is the one where if you're our age, adult kids in their late 20s and early 30s, these are the movies that we grew up with. And actually, basically, anyone born in the 80s grew up with these movies because it starts in 77 and it goes up through 2000. So I am really excited for this bracket, and we're going to do our best not to talk forever about this. But as you have no doubt noticed, we are fairly verbose people.
We do a very poor job of not talking forever, but we are going to try our best to be concise.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right in. We got four great matches in the contemporary bracket. The first one is the number 8 seed Hercules going up against the number 1 seed Winnie the Pooh. Actually, this is The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1975.
What's interesting to me about this is actually probably, in my opinion, the least interesting or weakest matchup in the whole bracket, looking down the line what we got coming up.
Yeah, I think in terms of almost all matches across round two, this might be the weakest one.
Yeah, and I mean, I honestly don't know which way it's going to go. Winnie the Pooh is a classic. Hercules is more recent, so I know Hercules better, but maybe it's not as good of a movie. I have a hard time picking. I guess I have to say Hercules just because I know it better, and I do really enjoy it, but it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I have a hard time speaking to the quality of it, but I have very good memories associated with it, and I do like the music in it. So I gotta say Hercules, but really, it's kind of a coin toss for me. I'm not. It's gonna lose to whatever wins the next one anyway. So
yeah, this matchup was one that I wasn't really that excited for, just because Hercules, to me, I've talked about before, I don't think that it's that great of a film. I don't find it entertaining. I just never really wanted to see it moving very far. I kind of expected that it would beat The Rescuers last round, but going into this match against Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh is a number 1 seed. So, as much as people don't necessarily think about that film when they think about Disney films from this period of time, it is regarded critically as a very good film from this period. And, like I said, this is the one from 1977. This is one that you might not remember, but you probably grew up with it. You probably watched it at some point, and regardless of whether or not you did, it's still Winnie the Pooh. So
yeah, I think it's one of those ones that maybe you watch in that like 3, 4, 5, 6 range, and less in that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range.
Yes.
So maybe it's not one that you remember as well.
Yeah.
But it's certainly in.
But it should still, the character itself should still be enough, in my opinion, to beat out a movie like Hercules, which it might have, a lot of nostalgia behind it, but
there's some great moments in Hercules, though. Like, just everything that Meg says in that movie is awesome.
She is the best part of that film.
She is far and away the best part. They think
you know what my biggest problem with Hercules is? The character of Hercules. The main character, the title character, your protagonist, is just not interesting. Like, nothing that he does is interesting. Every other character around him is more interesting.
And that's because Hercules he falls into that. He has no flaws, which makes him not interesting. In some ways, I'll say rather, a character with no flaws can easily be not interesting.
He does have flaws, but they're not like proactive flaws.
Right.
They're more it's
reactive flaws.
Yeah, it's just not it's not as I just don't find it that appealing. But I guess everybody else does, because Hercules did end up winning this one. 71%.
Yeah, I think that's going to be 71. Wow, I think
Yeah,
it's the nostalgia. I think Hercules is more recent. More people know it.
Like I said, I was surprised and saddened that Winnie the Pooh did not move on this round. But I do think that regardless of who won this match, as we both said, you're going against one of two juggernauts in the next round.
Yeah, we got all 6 of the next movies coming down the pipeline are heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And this next round, if you want to introduce it.
Yep, Little Mermaid, number 5 seed, up against the number 4 seed, The Lion King. Talk about a matchup that is hard.
Seriously,
hard
these
for
are
so
came
many
out
people.
92 and 94, I think, and both of these movies are like when we talk about the Disney Renaissance, it's these 2 movies, Beauty and the Beast,
and
are like these are like and these are like the heart of the Disney Renaissance. So I don't know how to pick between these.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were having trouble with these. I do think we talked a little about boy versus girl. And the one's aimed more at boys, the other's aimed a little bit more at girls.
I think when you talk about the princess bump here, but again, we're talking about Little Mermaid versus Lion King. So yeah, she's a princess, but like it's also the Lion King.
And then the Lion King had so much success on Broadway as an adaptation, and I think in recent years, I do think that the Lion King has really been looked at as like it's a classic. Like when it came out, people said like, "Oh, this is an instant classic."
Right, but now it's really stood up well against the test of time.
Yeah.
It's been over it's like 24 years since it came out. Which
I
mean,
guess I would compare these two as saying
that's
like
a long time.
I guess it would. To me, it's something like Frozen versus Toy Story. You know, that might seem like kind of crazy to compare them in that way. Like, and obviously that comparison is not correct for a number of reasons. But I see it in terms of
I think that those are. I think it makes sense to compare Frozen and Toy Story. But continue.
I think that it is very much Little Mermaid has some great things, but in terms of the actual plot, you know, in terms of the actual message, in terms of a lot of what the film teaches you, it's not as, I guess, it's much more fun than it is a good teacher of lessons.
Yeah, and we should also point out that both of these movies are taken from some classic works of literature. The Lion King heavily draws from Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is, you know, widely considered to be one of the best pieces of fiction ever written. And The Little Mermaid is from Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. Now, Little Mermaid they both obviously take liberties, or The Lion King would have a much more tragic ending, as would the Little Mermaid, The Lion King, whichever one I didn't say. They both have tragic endings. I think I probably voted for The Lion King, but honestly, this was one of those ones for me where it's totally dependent upon my mood. It could be a coin toss, changing by the day, because I love both of these movies.
Yeah, I think the music is the one thing that makes it so hard.
Yeah, because both of the music is great.
Yeah, the music in both of them is just like, if I'm looking purely at story, I gotta go with Lion King.
I agree, but if we bring music into it,
once you throw everything in, then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't say no to those songs.
Right, you've got on the one side you got "Kiss the Girl" and "Part of Your World" and "Under the Sea."
Not part of your, part of your world.
And on the other hand, you've got "Hakuna Matata" and "The Circle of Life" and "Be Prepared"
and "Can't Wait to Be King."
Yeah, it's like. Oh my gosh!
It's hard.
These are some of the best Disney songs in all of the Disney canon.
Well, and Lion King had that added effect where it wasn't strictly musical where characters were all singing the songs. There was a soundtrack to it as well, in addition to the musical numbers that were being performed by the characters. Similar to what we talked about with Tarzan and Fox and the Hound. So, you know, Elton John did an amazing job on this film, writing as like...
is there a more iconic film opening, not just Disney film opening, but film opening?
Yeah, you say that, you just scream that first syllable...
Which we won't do because we don't own the rights to it.
And everybody knows what you're saying. So, it's a tough match. It's a tough match. I thought it was going to be a lot closer, though.
Was it not that close?
Lion King ends up beating out Little Mermaid 73% to 27%.
Wow. I'm not surprised that Lion King wins. I'm surprised that it wins by that much.
I think so many people were in the same situation as us, where they saw both of these films as like, man, both of them though, and they just started weighing them. And when it's like what we said, like the songs are great in both, but the story is stronger in Lion King.
It is. And I mean, if you also want to talk about emotional impact, like that moment where Simba's like, Dad, you gotta get up. Like,
I honestly, I think that was the first time I cried in a movie.
That I would believe it. I don't remember
when I was a kid. I remember my parents like, they were making I remember when because we never went to the theater when I was a kid. Like we just
so now you're making up for
it. Basically, we would every once in a while we would go to the the cheap show.
Sure.
After the movie had been out for 3 months, and then it started playing for 10% of the price that it originally
and
cost.
This would have been 1994, so we're talking $2.
$2. Yeah. So every once in a while we would do that. But most of the time when we saw films, it was we either rented them from Blockbuster or we just straight up
which is
bought
something
them.
that we did as Ancient Relics.
Or we just straight up bought them, which was rare, but it wasn't as rare for Disney movies. And a Disney movie like The Lion King that had so much praise, that was one that we just straight up bought on VHS. And I remember the first time I watched it with my family, and I do remember I cried during that moment when he kills Mufasa and Simba comes up to him. Like, that was the most emotionally powerful moment for me as a kid at that age.
Yeah.
And I remember my family made a big deal out of the fact that I was crying. I don't think they were picking on me. I think it was more like they were sad that I was crying because they realized how powerful this movie was.
Right. And I mean, and again, if we talk about that moment, and then there's the moment too that I just remembered when after Simba is confronted by the ghost of Mufasa and he runs back across the wilderness, and there's that score that plays, and there's no music. It's just that really simple score as he
and
runs.
Just repeating over and over and over again.
I think as we talk about it, I'm convincing myself that Lion King deserves the win because of these couple of moments that really elevate it.
I think that's exactly what happened with the voting here, is that this one had people so conflicted more than any of the others maybe in this bracket, that they were just wrestling with it. And the more they thought about it, the more they wrestled with it, the more they realized that Lion King does deserve the win over The Little Mermaid.
Despite Little Mermaid being a great movie, no question.
Yeah, but in round 2, you're going to be seeing these matchups, and it's only going to get worse. However, going up against Hercules, I don't think Hercules has a chance against the Lion King.
Not in his 12 labors did he do anything so difficult.
So I very much foresee Lion King advancing to the Elite 8. Now, whether it makes the Final 4, that's going to be determined by who wins the second half of the bracket, which is the first match is the number 6 seed, I believe. The number 6 seed Tarzan up against the number 3 seed Aladdin.
I think this one's going to be easier for both of us to choose, but I think we choose different movies. I'm going to definitely choose Aladdin over Tarzan, and I think, Neil, you're going to choose Tarzan over Aladdin, aren't you?
No, I definitely chose Tarzan over Hunchback because
I still don't agree with that, but
because I do think it's a better film. But when you're going up against Aladdin, I mean, as good of a film as Tarzan is. Tarzan gave us some amazing. It's such an amazing film.
It is,
but
no argument.
Aladdin,
man.
If you were to ask my 9-year-old self what the best film of all time was, Aladdin.
Sure. I mean, there's that. In that moment when he everything's gone wrong for him all day, and he pulls that sheet back and reveals the palace and sings the refrain of the Street Rat song, and it's just it's taking all of my effort not to do. Mine
as well.
It's like that moment. It's just. It takes such good storytelling to convey that level of emotion to 6-year-olds.
And it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. It was a lot more fun than Tarzan because not only did you have a character like Aladdin that was interesting and exciting, and you think about One Jump, right? The song
Oh,
One
I
Jump.
love
Like,
that song
it's just
so
so
much.
exciting to be watching that film during that song. And just
Yeah.
everything that he's doing, like it, and he's just got this smile on his face the entire time he's doing
Because
it.
he's having more fun than anyone else there, and they're all trying to kill him, and he's just like,
Yeah.
this is look how fun this is.
Yeah.
Like it made me want to become a street rat.
Exactly. But you take that kind of a character in the title role,
Uh-huh.
and then you put Robin Williams in as the
To
genie.
support him. Yeah, it's like it's just these two Titanic characters, each having more fun than the other.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're right, it's an incredibly fun
then you have a
movie.
wonderful villain like Jafar, who is just
Yeah.
like so twirly mustache. Like
He is. He couldn't be
so-
more like Snidely Whiplash. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Iago, like played by what's his name?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert Gottfried, like plays that role perfectly.
Right.
Like, that's
And
completely
the funny
perfectly
thing,
cast.
this counts as a princess movie. Jasmine is in the court of Disney princesses, and
Yeah.
she's not nearly as important as any of the people
See,
we just
but
named.
she
Like,
has a significant role even at the
She
end
does.
of the film.
She's
and I
great,
think people do like this film because of her. I think a lot of
Yeah.
girls like this film because of her.
And she's
other
awesome. I mean,
people.
if we think about to her role, and like she calls Aladdin out on his lies,
Yep.
which is cool. She she has agency, which is something that, again, this was kind of if you think about the early Disney princesses, not a lot of agency, a lot of naps, not a lot of agency. Now in the Disney Renaissance, you're getting Belle, and you're getting I'm about to sneeze.
Yeah,
Or not.
you definitely. I was actually just gonna make this exact. I was gonna make this exact same point that you were about to make, which is that the early Disney princesses, they were subjects. They were not. They didn't have as much independence. Like,
Their stories happened to them, and they reacted to the
yes.
stories happening to
now
them.
you have now you have stories like Little Mermaid, and you have characters like Ariel, and you have Princess Jasmine, and you have
Belle.
Belle, and you have Mulan, which we're gonna get
Yeah.
to in a second. You have these characters, these strong women that are that are incredibly independent, and they're choosing their own path, and they're not being swayed by other people. And
Which is great. It's and so add that into what we just talked about with Aladdin and the genie played by Robin Williams
And
and this
Jafar
classic
and Iago.
evil villain. And
Yeah.
let us not forget that
The
when
father?
the Sultan holds his own as a comic entity
Oh, yes.
in a movie with Robin Williams. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
he's still hilarious.
As much as Tarzan is a great film, it really doesn't stand a chance against Aladdin, and our voters, they agree with that.
Excellent.
81% for
That
Aladdin,
makes sense, yeah.
19% for Tarzan. So Aladdin will be moving on as I expected, but the opponent that it will be moving on to is the winner of our next match, and that match, to me, was a tough one. I know it wasn't as tough to some people. It was obvious to some people, but to me, you got the number 7 seed Mulan going up against the number 2 seed Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, this is a really great matchup, and I love Mulan. I really do. I think it's a great movie. I like that they are pulling, there's some 12th Night in there, and I like that. But I think it deserves to be a more middle-seeded 7. Beauty and the Beast, I think, deserves to be 2nd. So as much as I really like Mulan, I think that Beauty and the Beast definitely deserves the win in this case. It's just, Mulan, it's an A, but Beauty and the Beast is an A+.
Yeah, it's really hard in a match like this to argue against Beauty and the Beast. There's so much about that film, despite all of the great things that Mulan did, and the music in that is some of my favorite Disney music.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last time that "Make a Man Out of You" is still on my get psyched exercise list.
It's just such a it's got the montage. It the whole film is designed to pump you up and get you like
Yes,
on
and it has,
her side and cheering for her in a way that a lot of these films, like, you're not necessarily cheering for the hero. Like, this one does that.
right, and there's great weight in this too when you discover the not decimated, because it's totally annihilated. Decimated means to lose 1/10. In this case, they find the army of the captain's father, and it's annihilated. Like, there's that really sobering moment after A Girl Worth Fighting For, and it's great.
Yeah.
And it also has one of the greatest lines when what the bad guy, who's also really
Shan
evil
Yu.
and Shan Yu, thank you, tells the emperor to bow, and he says, "No matter how the wind howls, the mountain cannot bow to it."
Yeah, I love
amazing.
That. I love
Such
that.
it's a great. Don't get me wrong.
You know what's really bad? I always picture in A Girl Worth Fighting For, because they're all just marching along singing, right? And they all come across. I always imagine that, like, because they cut off in that song, they never say "for" at the end, because they say "A Girl Worth Fighting," and then they see the devastation.
Right.
And I always picture the guy in the back who doesn't see it screaming out "for" when everyone else is silent.
And just like, wow, that really changes that scene.
Yeah, every single time I watch it, I think of that moment, and I think I've ruined that moment for myself. But
yep, and now for me and all of you.
I'm sorry, I apologize. But you'll enjoy it. Unfortunately, Mulan doesn't beat out.
Yeah, all that to say, you still can't argue against Beauty and the Beast for all the reasons you all already know.
Yeah, so Beauty and the Beast wins 69% over 31%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which means we have Beauty and the Beast going up against Aladdin. That is really going to be hard. Oh,
that is. You know, I was thinking, like, Mulan versus Aladdin was hard for me. Like, Beauty and the Beast versus Aladdin might be even harder.
Yeah.
I think
that's
harder
than
whoever the winner is there. I think that's harder than them against Lion King, because as much as we talked about Lion King being a great film, I think between Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, either
of them could beat Lion King.
Are better than Lion King, and it makes sense because they're seated that way. Beauty and the Beast is 2, Aladdin's 3, and Lion King is 4. So it makes sense. But we'll see who comes out on top, though. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's really tough. I think I got to give it to Beauty and the Beast personally, but we can talk more about that in our next video.
Well, so who do you have going? Who do you have going up in the Elite 8 for this bracket? And then who in our total bracket? And then who do you think is taking this whole bracket going to the Final Four?
We've got Hercules going up against Lion King. That's easy to me, Lion King.
Yeah.
And then we've got Aladdin going up against Beauty and the Beast. I think I got to give it to Beauty and the Beast, although this is one of those ones where it could go either way. But I like Belle more than I like Jasmine, so that's going to give it a bump.
I think the live-action film is also going to give Beauty and the Beast a little bit of a bump.
And then we got Lion King going up, so that would be Lion King against Beauty and the Beast. And remember, Lion King's getting a live-action film too.
Yep.
I think,
honestly,
I think Beauty and the
that
Beast
didn't help it.
Yeah, I think Beauty and the Beast is going to go farther.
Isn't Aladdin as well? Aladdin is too.
Yeah, they are.
But
Mulan and Aladdin aren't as far along in production. Like Lion King, it's been cast. You know, we know who's going to be in it, and so
Mulan's
there's a little
just now getting cast. Aladdin was cast earlier this year. I think.
And can we talk about how awesome Donald Glover is going to be as Simba? Like, I mean, come on, like.
He's awesome in anything that he does.
Yeah,
that whole. I almost said the Lando trailer. The Solo trailer.
It should be a Lando movie. It should be a Lando movie, and Solo should be the side character.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm.
But that's not what we're talking about this video.
No. So
I think Beauty and the Beast goes all the way to the end of this bracket. If I gotta pick one, I gotta pick Beauty and the Beast.
I wouldn't be surprised, but my preference, my choice would be Aladdin.
Which, again, wouldn't surprise me either. And Lion King wouldn't surprise me either. Any one of those three deserves the top spot, honestly.
Well, and whoever it is, they will be going against the winner of our last bracket that we're covering right now. And for round 2, this is our classic bracket.
The original Disney movies.
Yep, the films that came out from 1930 or 1937, really, up until 1975. Our first match in this bracket is the number 1 seed Pinocchio up against the number 9 seed The Lady and the Tramp.
All right, so here, Pinocchio. I mean, this one kind of could flip a coin. Pinocchio is rated number 1 seed, and I I was chastised for this by my father in the last video because I mentioned some of my heritage is Irish and Scottish and so he's like, well, why didn't you talk about being Italian? I was like, well, it didn't come up. But Pinocchio's Italian. I'm Italian. Although in Lady and the Tramp you get that great Italian song either. So really, that doesn't really help me decide. I like both these movies, but I don't love either of them. So I kind of have a hard time picking.
And I said in the last video, Pinocchio was one of those that I grew up with and I really loved. It was one of the early ones, and I still think it had a lot of things that nowadays you're like, wow, that's a little risky. But I think
the whole Pleasure Island part is kind of terrifying. Like,
but it's so bad, but I loved that part as a kid.
Of course you did. And I mean, also I think it can't be overstated though. Pinocchio introduces us to Jiminy Cricket, which is a huge part of Disney, and the Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes song, which also massive part of like the Disney culture. So if I have to pick one, I think I'd give it to Pinocchio over Lady and the Tramp. Again, we're looking at a 1 seed versus a 9 seed, so it's not like I'm being super like controversial with that. But I have to pick Pinocchio if I'm going to pick one. But honestly, I could see it going either way.
Yeah, I too would pick Pinocchio, but unfortunately we have our first major upset, and that is Lady and the Tramp taking it 67% to 33%. So
that's not even that close.
It's not that close, and this is a 9 seed up against the number 1 seed. I was sure that Pinocchio was I had Pinocchio going to Elite 8. I had it up in contention for Final Four, and it gets knocked out in the second round. So this is where it stops, and Lady and the Tramp will be moving on to face the winner of our next match, Cinderella, the 5 seed, up against the number 13 seed, Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, this one's way simpler in my mind. Doesn't matter if Pinocchio beat Lady and the Tramp or Lady and the Tramp beat Pinocchio, because neither of them are going to beat Cinderella. I think Cinderella's going to take it easy and then go on and beat Lady and the Tramp. I could be wrong, but again, we're talking about that princess bump, especially with Cinderella, one of the princesses. We've had a live action movie. It's still a huge part of like the Disney mindset. It's Cinderella. Like, I mean, it's just, you know.
Even if both of these films' live action adaptations were not good, and in my opinion, neither of them were.
I liked the Cinderella. I really liked the Cinderella. Actually, Lily James I thought was great. Kit Harington was great. I really.
Either way, I think this match is obvious. You know, we talked a lot about Alice in Wonderland and how it's just kind of a weird film, and we were both really surprised that it beat the number 4 seed Dumbo in the last round. And when it's going up against Cinderella, I mean, you couldn't count it out because it did beat Dumbo, but Cinderella is Cinderella. She is the Disney princess, and to expect her not to make it into the Sweet 16 is kind of crazy. Cinderella does win 67%. Over 33%. So Cinderella will be going up against Lady and the Tramp in the next round.
Yeah, and I think that'll go to Cinderella too. I think that again, the Cinderella is a juggernaut in this bracket, and I think in the bracket overall. And so, Lady and the Tramp is a fine movie. Nothing against Lady and the Tramp, but Cinderella I think is just has way more love in general.
Yeah, I think when Lady and the Tramp is going up against a film like Pinocchio, which may have a lot of great merits, but is not that Cinderella is super new, but Pinocchio is a little dated in terms of, there's a lot of content and animation, even though the animation is beautiful. I think people just aren't as interested in Pinocchio, whereas no one is ever not going to be interested in the character of Cinderella, regardless of the story.
Right. And that's gonna, especially because not only that, but Cinderella transcends Disney. That's I think it's one of the Grimm's fairy tales. But it's that story exists outside of Disney, which gives the Disney character more power in the Disney bracket, I think.
So I was surprised Lady and the Tramp beat Pinocchio. It may have been able to get away with that upset, but I do not think that it's going to end up beating Cinderella.
That would really surprise me. I think Cinderella, that'll be one of the closest, or one of the farthest, most definitive ones that we have in this bracket, for sure.
Yeah, so I see Cinderella, going up Elite 8, possibly even Final 4. But that will depend on our next matches. And our next one is the number 6 seed Fantasia up against the number 14 seed Peter Pan.
This is really interesting, I think, because Fantasia is higher seeded by more than double, except that again, we talked about this last time. It doesn't have a narrative structure. I think it's harder for kids to watch. There's no main character.
It's harder to embrace, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and so while Fantasia is a really cool piece of art, I definitely think Peter Pan is going to win and deserves a win. And again, I've talked about this a little bit. Peter Pan is another one of those cocksure sort of debonair swashbucklers, and I love those. So I think that Peter Pan definitely takes it, and it's got a whole cast of characters along with him that really make that movie memorable, despite some really unfortunate racism.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a lot about Peter Pan last week in terms of going up against 101 Dalmatians, because it was a number 14 seed going up against the number 3 seed, and we really thought that both of those films could move on. We wanted Peter Pan to move on just because of that, childhood spirit that it has. It ended up moving on past 101 Dalmatians to go against something like Fantasia. Is a little bit of an easier matchup for it. It had a hard match the first round. Now it has a little bit easier one, and it ends up winning 75%. So it moves on to our Sweet 16, and it will go against the winner of our next match.
This maybe is going to be our hardest match of the whole bracket.
Of the classic bracket for sure. I think in this round, we have the number 10 seed Sleeping Beauty against the number 2 seed Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Man, we talk about the princess movies, and there are kind of 3 big ones in this classic bracket, and it's 2 of them are going against each other here. I would choose Sleeping Beauty personally. I like Sleeping Beauty more. I like Prince Philip, and I love Maleficent. Sleeping Beauty, I maybe mentioned this, but the production was delayed because Walt thought Maleficent was too scary, and which to me is cool. And I'm an adult now, so I love that, and just the whole the knight in shining armor going up against a dragon. That speaks to me on a deep level. And so I gotta choose Sleeping Beauty over Snow White, but we can't count Snow White out, because Snow White it did what Toy Story did. It was a first feature-length animated movie, and people were like, they called it Disney's Folly. They were like, oh, this is ridiculous. He won the Academy Award for it, and there wasn't a Best Animated Feature at the time.
And I need to correct myself. I need to correct myself, because last video I said that I thought it was something like it took 8 years to make or something like that. Because for some reason, I thought I remembered hearing that in some sort of documentary or something. But that's not the case. It was a normal production length. It was only 3 years, I think.
Which is average for animated movies still to this day.
But it did force Walt Disney to mortgage his house in order to actually make the film. So there was a lot, and you talked about Disney's Folly, there was a lot about this production that made it a huge risk, and the risk paid off. And we wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for this film.
Right, and so while I might like Sleeping Beauty more, and it is a 10 seed versus a 2 seed, either one of these could win, and it wouldn't surprise me. I'm like, oh yeah, it deserves it. Really, both of these deserve the win. Certainly.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of them, could go. I personally, I enjoy Sleeping Beauty a little bit better than Snow White, but I would give it to Snow White in this matchup just because of what it did. And Snow White does end up taking it 71% to 29%.
Wow, I would have guessed it'd be closer.
I was surprised by the gap. A lot of the films in this bracket, in the classic bracket, had a wider gap than I expected.
Yeah.
We'll see if that changes at all as we go into the Sweet 16 next week and the Elite 8. Yeah. I have a feeling that as we go, the margin's gonna increase. Just because, at least with this bracket, because when you get down to the last few, you're gonna say for instance Cinderella against Lady and the Tramp. Like we said, we're pretty sure Cinderella takes that one, and then Cinderella's going up against either Peter Pan or Snow White. I'm guessing Snow White beats Peter Pan, and then you have but I would guess that Snow White beats Peter Pan by a pretty significant margin. Cinderella probably beats Lady and the Tramp by a pretty significant margin. I think the next time you're going to see a close match is when we get Cinderella against Snow White.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is I'm a little bummed. Snow White is great. I know Sleeping Beauty is also my mom's favorite of all of the Disney movies, like the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, Snow White is great. I think with Snow White versus Peter Pan, we're getting again what you talked about before, with that sort of the boy movie versus the girl movie.
Yeah.
And
well, and I'm still going to be rooting.
I think you're right. I got to give the edge to Snow White again. It's the first one. It's the princess. I think Snow White deserves the edge there. I probably like Peter Pan more, though.
I think Snow White deserves to win, but I'm going to be rooting for Peter Pan this whole way.
Yeah.
I wanted to take this whole bracket now that
I would be happy with
gone.
It. Yeah. So. Again, I'd be super okay with that. But again, to point out the obvious, we are both boys, so it's not surprising that we like Peter Pan more than Snow White.
So, hypothetically, let's say Snow White wins this whole bracket, which is not a crazy thing to assume.
Right.
And
I would guess Cinderella over Snow White, actually, but neither would surprise me.
Okay, so whichever one, whether it's Peter Pan, Cinderella, Snow White, whichever one of them wins this whole bracket, do you think they have a chance against the winner of the contemporary bracket? Because we're talking about, you're either going to have Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, probably not Hercules, but you got Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King.
For me, no. Like, I'd have an easy time choosing. I think when I was young, I liked those movies more because the animation was newer, and I like they were made for me as an audience member and not for my mom or her mom as an audience member. So, and I think assuming that most of the people voting are kind of our peers, I think no. Maybe like Cinderella or Snow White against like Aladdin, maybe. You know, I feel like of a Lion King, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin is going to have the most difficult time against Cinderella or Snow White.
See, I would say Lion King would.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
I don't... See, that's the thing. I think... I don't know who's going to come out on top of the contemporary bracket, because that bracket has so many great films still in it. I mean... Talk about like the Pixar bracket, like that's ridiculously hard. But this one's hard in a different way. And no matter who comes out on top, I think they take it, against the classic bracket, despite them being the classic bracket.
Yeah.
I very much think that we're gonna end up seeing a Pixar film and a contemporary
Renaissance film.
Yeah, in the final in the championship.
That sounds
match.
absolutely likely to me. And I think it'd be interesting to point out that the Pixar films, I guess with the exception of Coco, aren't musicals. Yeah. So they're just movie, and we've been talking a lot about how we like this music better or that music better.
Even
Pixar
if they have
doesn't
music
have
in
that.
them, they are not musicals.
Yeah. Right. I think except for Coco, right? Coco is a musical.
Yes.
But
Coco is not a musical in the way the other Disney films are musicals.
Right.
Music is a part of the plot, and so the main characters sing, but they don't break out into song and dance. Their singing makes sense in the actual plot of the film.
Right. No, it's not like that.
Yeah, because they're either getting on stage to perform at like a show for some reason, or they're trying to serenade someone, or for whatever reason, their singing is I guess you would say realistic. It's genuine. It's
not Belle singing her morning song about how quaint the little village is and singing along with everybody. It's like, how does everyone know the words to this?
You don't have to subscribe to the, you don't have to suspend your disbelief for the for
the way that you do with like a musical.
Yeah. But speaking of subscribing,
do it.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our channel and subscribe and vote for these movies, because this is only fun if you guys vote. Okay, if it's just us voting, it's going to be either tied or a landslide, and that's no fun. So subscribe to our channel and vote. And right now, again, the voting is happening on our YouTube page. So find it. There's a link in the below, and vote on our YouTube page. And also tell us how you want to vote, or our Facebook page. Sorry, our Facebook page. Tell us how you want to vote, though, because if you don't like voting on Facebook and you'd rather vote on Twitter or maybe with like a Google Doc, I don't know. But I think Twitter would probably be better, or Facebook, one of the two, and I'm not sure. So comment. Tell us what's easier for you.
Yep.
Comment on the Facebook group. Comment in the YouTube videos. Subscribe to YouTube. Hit the bell. Follow us on Facebook. And we just got a Twitter and an Instagram, the links of which will be somewhere around my face. Let me tell you, it's at That's a Fact. One's got underscore, one of them has periods. They'll be somewhere on this screen, and there'll be links below me. So interact with us. This is only fun if you guys interact with us. Otherwise, we're not gonna want to keep doing this, and we like doing this. So anything to add to that? Are we good?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time, guys.
Yeah, we're figuring out. It's gonna get down to the Elite Eight, and as you know, this is not our opinions, and that's a fact.